personal journey of an NFL wife who spent years trying to have a baby, navigating hope, heartbreak, and resilience behind the scenes. Then we sound the alarm on vaping. What many teens believe is harmless could be silently damaging their lungs and their future. And finally, aging. Why are we so afraid of it? One remarkable guest is challenging everything we think we know about growing older and proving that vitality does not have an expiration date. This is your space to pause, breathe, and get informed. This is Second Opinion, and it starts right now. First, did you know April is National Infertility Awareness Month? It's a topic that hits home for many of us. In fact, 1 in 8 couples suffer through pain of infertility. Infertility is characterized by the inability to achieve a successful pregnancy after 1 year of regular, unprotected intercourse for individuals under the age of 35 or after 6 months for those older than 35. Joining me now is America's favorite OB-GYN, at least she is mine, and celebrity doctor from Bravo's hit show, now on its 12th season, Married to Medicine, Dr. Jackie Walters. So welcome, Dr. Jackie. Can you explain to us why are women experiencing infertility at this stage, right? I feel like we've advanced in medicine and yet we're still having this issue with infertility. What's the cause?
Well, I don't think science is changing at all, Ebony. I certainly can say when we know more, we definitely tend to see it more. But infertility, like you said, is if you've tried for 12 consecutive months and you're under the age of 35, we call it infertility. And of course, over 35 is 6 months. But 1/3 of the fertility issues can be female, 1/3 male, and just 1/3 is unknown. And for females, it can be almost anything: ovulation disorders. Age is probably one of the biggest factors, uterine abnormalities, tubal disorders, and for men, it can be sperm count, sperm motility, varicosities in the scrotal sac. So it can definitely affect both of us, male and female, but why are we seeing it more? I think we know more.
And you're saying these numbers are high. Is it disproportionate in our community? Are African Americans more likely to have infertility than the general population?
Absolutely. We definitely see about 15% of African American women will have some sort of infertility issue, where you may only see about 7 or 8% in white women.
And why do you think that is the case? Like, is it linked to something biologically with us? Is it in our environment?
One, we see a lot more fibroids in the African American community, and then access to care is definitely one of those issues. And we've heard it over and over on your show. The stress of being Black definitely is a factor.
Now, you've shared publicly on your shows just your own journey with fertility, including a pregnancy loss during cancer treatment that shaped both your personal and your professional approach as a physician. How has this dual experience changed the way you counsel patients facing infertility?
I like to share that story, as I call it, sitting on both sides of the knife, being the patient and being the doctor. If you don't know my story, of course, I was diagnosed with breast cancer right at the time that I was pregnant. Once I found out I had breast cancer, I needed to start treatment. I had a pregnancy loss. I had 6 months of chemo, 33 cycles of radiation to then learn that I also was now an infertility patient because the ovaries never turned back on. And so I'm always saying to the ladies, who can better tell you about infertility than an OB-GYN female who has been an infertility patient?
And and you speak so clearly and so passionately when it comes to this issue. When we're talking about the stigma of fertility, how do you address that within the Black community when sometimes there can be stereotypes of, if you don't have a kid, you're not completely successful, right? If something is missing in your life. How do we battle that stigma and really wrap our arms around people who are struggling with fertility issues or who may simply not want children in the first place?
I think you make a great point in that everybody needs to be mindful of that question, when are you going to have children?
Mhm.
And so it was really hard being an OB-GYN and everybody asking me, when are you going to have a baby? And having to relive the story over and over and over again. But what people don't realize is that when we talk about infertility, we don't realize that it's not as rare as people think it is. It really is happening a lot. Women are waiting a little later in life, and age is one of the greatest factors to get pregnant. And so definitely there is always, what's wrong? Why don't you have kids? So the question should not be asked, especially if it's not somebody you're dear and close to.
And it's one of these things too of when you don't want to get pregnant, you do things to help reduce the chances of you being pregnant, right? You're on birth control. You have different methods to prevent that ovulation. So how do you know, and if you are struggling with fertility or may struggle with fertility before then, are there any tests that you can do that can lead you to saying, hey, if I want to have children, I need to be maybe harvesting my eggs now as opposed to waiting for later?
So we're telling every woman age 30 and greater, really before 30, if you are not planning to get pregnant, please, please harvest and freeze eggs, because the one thing you can't get back will be those eggs. And the earlier, the better. And definitely it's timing, but the quality of eggs will be important too. And the more mature, you notice I don't use the word age or older, the more mature you are, the less quality of eggs and less number of eggs you'll have. So we're telling every woman, if you can, please harvest and freeze your eggs by the age 30, no later than 35.
30 to 35. You've been very candid about difficult conversations on Married to Medicine, from supporting co-stars through IVF journeys. What, for the general public that say, hey, I'm not a celebrity, right? I don't necessarily even have access. How easy is it to do IVF? What's the financial cost? What does the process look like just in general?
I think every woman should have a consult with her OB-GYN or a reproductive endocrinologist to talk about it. Cost is definitely a factor. A lot of the fertility doctors have all methods of helping one to finance the egg harvesting and freezing. I've been told on an average, and this is definitely not concrete, but on an average, it's about a $9,000 or $10,000 investment. But trust me, all of those groups have methods to help you pay for that. I'm very honest to women, and more so because I had to live through it and wish I had done it in reverse. If you can, ask, because there are programs out there where if you are involved in a study, you can egg freeze for free. If you need to, they have financial programs that will help you egg freeze, but please don't have the remorse, because you cannot get back eggs.
Is there anything outside of IVF? Is there anything that a woman can do to improve her fertility, whether it's diet, exercise, a supplement? Is there anything that can say, hey, if you do these things, it'll at least improve your likelihood of getting pregnant?
Everything you just said, diet is important, exercise is important. Believe it or not, weight is a significant factor in fertility. So the more ideal body weight you have, the better your chances are for fertility. We certainly recommend taking supplements so you have your folic acid and vitamin D in place. And then, what can we say about stress again? Stress is certainly a factor, but I've heard it over and over again, even on your show, Ebony, that diet and exercise is really important. Supplements every day. And I think we heard on one of your other shows that eating healthy is very important. And you are what you eat. And I always say, eat the earth. If you didn't kill it or grow it, it's not the earth. So your eggs, your nuts, your meats, your beans, your grains, you want to eat healthy. And do not smoke.
Yeah.
Oh my God, smoking destroys those ovarian follicles faster than anything else. So stop smoking.
You smoking or being around someone who smokes also. And you mentioned earlier that a third of it is related to women as far as infertility, and a third is related to men. Are there any things that partners can do if you're a couple and you're trying to get pregnant? Is there something that the man can also do to improve the likelihood of fertility for their pregnancy?
So we certainly want to tell them not to smoke. That's really important as well. Wearing boxers and not brief, keeping the testicles cool is important. So hot tubs, you want to avoid if you're trying to get pregnant. But if you question at all that there is a fertility issue, say something sooner than later, because there will be basic tests that we do in the general OB-GYN office before we send you off. So we always want to make sure you're ovulating. So we draw blood tests around a certain period of time, around your period of like day 2, 3, or 4. We will check to make sure your tubes are patent, because you want to make sure that the egg and the sperm, and most people don't realize you actually get pregnant in your fallopian tube. So sperm meet egg in the fallopian tube, they marry, fertilize, and hang out there for 3 days before they go back into the uterine cavity. So an HSG, hysterosalpingogram, is to check the uterine cavity and the fallopian tube. And then semen analysis. It's important that men have the absolute at least 20 million sperm per ejaculate. You want to make sure that they have the proper head, the proper tail, and that the motility is great. Because, again, a third of it could be the male factor.
And, we're talking a lot about the conception part. We know that many women that walk into the office that are complaining or have the chief complaint of infertility, they may be pregnant in that moment, but they can't keep the pregnancy, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the common causes that causes the loss of a pregnancy that doesn't progress towards a baby?
So recurrent pregnancy loss is if a woman has had 2 or more recurrent losses in pregnancy, we do definitely work it up. It can definitely be genetics. They can have factor deficiencies. They can definitely have tubal disease, Müllerian defects. So when we're developing in the uterus and the ovary and uterus and fallopian tube develop, some women will have a defect that happens during development in mom's uterus. So the patient needs to be worked up for all different types of autoimmune disorders. And as I said, factor deficiencies will do it. And sometimes it's fibroids. We see that a lot in women, that they have fibroids, and a lot of women will ignore fibroids and have recurrent pregnancy loss.
There's a saying that you say over and over again in our conversations, that if we are dying more, we should be doing more, right? If we have these disparities more, even if it's not related to death, that we should be doing more for the Black community. What one action point do you think surrounding this disparity of infertility do you think needs to be implemented? Like, is there a policy? Is there a different screening process? What do you think would help us?
I think the problem is we cannot get coverage for infertility. A lot of women suffer from infertility, but insurances won't pay for the testing, they won't pay for the IVF, and they won't pay for surrogacy if that's the route that women have to go.
I know you have a surrogacy group. Can you give us the information about how can people get involved with the group if they're thinking that, hey, I really do want to have a child and I may not be able to carry it myself? How can I get in touch with you?
So I have a surrogacy agency called Surrogacy Miracles and Consulting. And again, I think I have walked through every area of GYN that a woman could walk through. So I co-created a surrogacy agency with a patient who was actually a surrogate for 3 times. And that is for the woman who may not want to get married and have a baby on her own, or for a woman who's tried multiple times to get pregnant and couldn't carry the pregnancy or get pregnant. We can definitely, and then male factor. That's a part of the fertility journey too, that we can find somebody else. If we need donor eggs, we need donor sperm, or we need a uterus, which we call our gestational carriers. And you can look us up on Instagram, Surrogacy Miracles and Consultant, and we are there and available.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jackie, for your honesty. You always are on point with the facts and reminding women that infertility is not a personal failure. It's a medical condition that deserves compassion, support, and access to care. So we thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And coming up, the story of one couple's journey to creating the family they were always destined to have. We're talking faith and fertility. Stay with us.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
Joining me now is Aikisha Holly, a cast member on the Southern reality TV series Bell Collective on OWN, and also author of Faith Fertility. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Ebony. How are you?
I'm doing well. First, I want to thank you for joining and being vulnerable enough to share your story. So,
thank you for having me.
Right. If you're willing, can you tell us about your fertility journey? Like, where did it start?
Well, my fertility journey was a long one, and it ended up being a very hard one, but I always have to say, but God. So I started trying to conceive at the age of 36, right after my biological mom passed. She passed February 22nd, 2014. And that year in August, I would be turning 37. So to my knowledge, I had never been pregnant before then. Excuse me. And I never had the desire to be pregnant by anyone that I was dating or who had been with before my, at the time, boyfriend and I started. And we weren't married at the time, but I knew and I felt that he was going to be my husband. And that was because of, that's another book and another story. But after my mother passed, I just had this urgency of wanting to have a baby. And I was realizing I was, over the age of 35, like you heard Dr. Jackie speaking of, and I'd never been pregnant before. So I didn't even know if I could get pregnant. But I knew I always wanted to be a mother. I knew I always wanted to be a wife. And I focused more in my 20s and my early 30s on career and all of the things that we think about and want to do and want to accomplish before we have a family. And when my mom passed, I said, whoa, wait a minute. My mother has died. I had my adopted mom, and my dad was in his late 80s. So I want to have a baby.
Right.
I brought it to my boyfriend he was then my boyfriend, and he was at the end of his career. My husband is a retired NFL player, and he was trying to stay on the field. He had a lot of things going on in his career and was dealing with injury. And I honestly did not know how he was going to respond. But what I knew is at the age of 36, I did not have the time, because our clock is ticking, to be with someone who was going to say, yeah, I want to have a kid, but I want to have a kid in the next 4 or 5 years. Because at this point I'm 36, and 4 to 5 years, I was going to be 40, 41. I knew that I wanted it to be with him, but I was willing at that point to take the that chance that it may not. And also I had to come to reality and come to grips with my urgency was not his urgency.
Wow.
And I couldn't put that pressure on him. So I had to be okay if he said, you know what, this is not really something I want to do right now.
Wow. And how did he respond to that?
Read my book. No. No. You know what? Honestly, I got his really true feelings when I read our manuscript. But at the time he sat there, I remember he was watching an NBA game, because my mom died that February. It was in March. We were getting toward the end of the NBA season, and we were sitting on the couch, and he just looked at me when I told him, I said, I want to have a baby, and I want to have a baby with you. And I just remember him looking at me, and he said, okay.
Look, when it's right, it's right.
I found out when we did this book through our manuscript, all of the things that was going through his head. And he went back through his life, his past traumas and drama. He thought about his dad, who, he had another family outside of his mother, who was his wife. He goes through this entire process that I never, ever knew that in his mind, he was saying, I'm going to do this because I don't want to lose her, but I don't even know if I really want to be a dad.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know, because he was dealing with a mother who was very sick. He blamed a lot of his mother's illness on his dad's infidelity and everything that his dad had done. And so, I learned all of that as we were writing the book, and this became sort of therapy for us. And so after we decide, okay, we're going to have a baby, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to get pregnant. We're going to have this baby. We're going to get married, and life is going to be amazing, because it was already amazing. I mean, I'm dating an NFL player, Super Bowl champion. I was doing well. He was doing well. Money was not a factor for us. We were living well and living life. Why, when God blesses me with everything I've ever wanted, why would I have an issue having a baby? Right. So we have the first pregnancy. We got pregnant for the first time. I found out in that September of 2014. I turned 37 that August, found out we were pregnant. I'm excited. I was like, oh, because people had said it's going to take a little time. It takes a couple of months. Here we go. We were out Halloween. I start cramping. They're saying, oh, that's normal. You're having the baby, the embryo is implanting on your uterus. You're going to have a little bit of spotting. I start bleeding, and then it didn't stop. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, then I hear people saying, well, everybody has miscarriages. They just don't talk about them. It's something natural that your body, it's a foreign object to your body. Your body's never been pregnant before. So sometimes the body will get rid of it. You'll get pregnant again. It'll be fine. Right. They were right. I had that miscarriage the first week of November. By the end of December, I think January, I was pregnant again. We were going into 2015. February, we had traveled to Turks and Caicos, and I'm excited. And we write this big heart in the sand, and I'll send you guys that picture. We are having a baby on the beach of Turks and Caicos, because that's how we were going to make our announcement once I got through this, the period, at least get to 12 weeks. I was about 7-8 weeks then. Started spotting in Turks. Oh, wow. Back to New Jersey. It didn't stop. Another miscarriage. So I said to myself then, I was like, well, listen, you know what? I'm up here in New Jersey. We were referred to, doctors that a lot of the ladies on the team, a lot of the wives and girlfriends were going to. I said, you know what? I want to go back to Atlanta, because I'm from Mississippi, but I lived in Atlanta for about 16 or 17 years because I went to college in Atlanta. And I had been with my doctor, my OB-GYN there since my freshman year at Clark Atlanta. So I was like, I need to get back to Atlanta and let my Black doctor put her Black hands on me. Right. Because I had not, I'm with these women, and they're just like, oh, this first they were saying it was normal. And then they're like, oh, well, you probably need to look into seeing a fertility specialist, because it was a second miscarriage. And exactly what Dr. Jackie was saying. I mean, at this point, I'm 37 years old, but I still wanted to see my doctor. I go down. I meet with Dr. Camille Davis-Williams and her team, and she says, I think everything's okay. Next time you get pregnant, I want you to take a baby aspirin, start a baby aspirin, and I want you to tell them to put you on progesterone. I said, okay. Well, when I got back, we were starting to see the fertility specialist that the team doctor had suggested that we see. They're supposed to be the best in New Jersey. I get back, I'm seeing them, I'm going through the process. Well, during that time, I get pregnant again on my own, pregnancy number 3. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So I ask her, I start my aspirin, but I'm asking her, do you think I should start progesterone? Because, professional courtesy. My adopted mom's a doctor. My grandmother's a nurse. I understand you don't walk from one doctor to the next saying, oh, well, I need to do this and do that. So I'm asking her, do you think I should start progesterone? She's like, oh, no, your numbers are fine. Your numbers are fine. You are well over, what your level is supposed to be for progesterone. So I said, oh, okay. We do the ultrasound. I get a little heartbeat. So I'm like, OMG. I'm about to have a baby. And one, how am I about to tell my family that I'm having a baby and I'm not married? But we'll get to it. Right. So anyway, we're going next time I go, because I was at that clinic, they allowed me to stay and continue to see them until I was going to be going to, because the OB wasn't going to see me. I had to be over 8 weeks in order for her to just get my first appointment. So this fertility clinic was allowing me to come in. I was, at 5 weeks and then 6 weeks. I got a heartbeat, 7 weeks, and then 8 weeks. I was going to leave them. I come back, my progesterone was still coming down. It wasn't fluctuating. And so I'm saying to her, I said, don't you think I should start progesterone? I've heard that if you take progesterone, she's like, oh, no, you don't need progesterone. It's still over what your level is supposed to be. I'm like, okay. Mine are fluctuating. They're decreasing. They're declining. What? Come back for the 8th week, which they were going to be releasing me after that. No.
Oh.
So she says, well, at your age, and she goes through a lot of the things that we just heard Dr. Jackie say. She said, well, we want to do a D&C this time to see if, so we can test it to see if there's an abnormality, see if something's wrong with your ovarian reserve, your egg. So I say, okay, because I am devastated. I mean, when I say distraught, I said some things to this doctor that I know she was happy when I left them, because you did not listen.
Yeah.
I am saying to you, do you think I should be taking progesterone? And then I find out from another doctor, as you go along through my story, when I finally find a black RE, she said, I don't understand why she just didn't give you the progesterone, because if you were going to lose, you were going to lose anyway.
Yeah.
The progesterone only would have helped a healthy pregnancy. We do the DNC, they test it, and it was a healthy embryo. So that was number 3. And from there, I leave that clinic. I go to another clinic, and my story goes on. And one of them I went to, the lady flat out told me, because what was happening, Dr. Ebony, is that my ovarian reserve was deteriorating. I was 37, then I'm 38, then I'm 39, then I'm 40 over these years of what we're doing. My body was not producing the follicles that I needed to produce eggs.
Yeah.
They told me the only way I was going to be able to have a baby from me would be getting a donor egg. But the thing is that I had seen my son. God had shown me my son in a dream long before Willie and I started this process. And then when I got with Willie, God showed me the same baby, the same son.
Wow.
So at this point, I'm 40 at the time, because I went from 37, 38, 39, miscarriage. So at this point, I think I was at 6 miscarriages. And I'm at my 3rd fertility clinic, and I'm saying, God, you've shown me this baby boy, to the point where I would hear a scent would come past my nose, and I could smell him. And the scent that I smelled then is how my son's neck smells now.
Wow.
So I was saying, God, not that I have anything against a donor, but the baby that I saw, he looked like me.
It was mine. You're right.
He was mine. So if this is the path for me, then help me to get aligned with what you have for me. I get pregnant. I find a black RE, and I met her by happenstance going to see Michelle Obama during her becoming tour. So now at this point, we're at 2019. I am 41 years old. And I meet this lady who ends up introducing me to Dr. Stephanie Marshall Thompson, who's a black RE. There are not that many. There were at the time maybe 16 in the country. Wow. Black reproductive endocrinologists. And one was in Jersey, because I was about to go back to Atlanta to one. My line sister had found one for me we knew someone who had gone to. So anyway, I was going to go. I was on my way back to Atlanta to see this RE. Found Dr. Stephanie. And she says, the most important thing that she said to me was, you only need one egg. I'm going to do everything I can to help you get that egg. And because you have to realize, I was doing IVF, I had done IUIs. The most I had ever retrieved from of eggs during a retrieval was 3.
Oh.
I had friends who were getting 15 eggs, 30 eggs. I mean, they were a little bit younger than me. Some of them were the same age as I was. But for whatever reason, my body was sort of throwing itself into perimenopause. My FSH levels were at 56. Mind you, clinics won't work with you. Some won't work with you under 22 that I went to. Her clinic wouldn't work with you over 25. But she said that she still, because I told her, I said, it's something in me and God has shown me.
Right.
I'm going to be a mother. By this time, I'm married. You know, Willie and I had been engaged. We had been married. Like I said, I'm 41. And I really began to just, you know, what a lot of people don't talk about is the mental that goes on when you're dealing with this, when you're going through this. I've never been insecure in my life, Dr. Ebony. And I am a child who, my story, you get my story. I'm a child of 6. We had different dads. My dad's family, my dad was married at the time. He and my mom got together. His family adopted me. I went from like a rags to riches story. I went from the poorest school to one of the best schools in the state. I just had all these things going on. Never was insecure. Stepped in every room with high, just ego expectation, knowing that I could conquer this. Went to Clark Atlanta from Mississippi, ran for Miss Freshman. 13 girls ran for Miss Freshman. The most that had ever run in history. My grandmother said, but you from Mississippi, don't be, I'm going to win. And I did. Never, ever insecurity. But during this period, my husband's 5.5 years younger than I am. He could be with anyone he wanted to be with. Even the girls, all of my friends had children. My line sisters were popping out babies every year. The girls, his ex-girlfriends were popping out babies. And I could not give him a baby. And I knew, yes, fertility issues are 30% his, 30% mine, and 33, whatever it is. We knew that it was my issue. And the level of insecurity that I had, it and my anxiety, it was taking over me. Because the thing is I kept saying, if I'm not able to do this, that does not mean that he doesn't deserve to be a father. And he would say to me, babe, I knew how old you were when we got together. I knew the decision I made. I know what he said. So whatever God has for us is going to be. But he always said that he knew that I was going to be a mom. He knew that we were going to have children. But my faith will waver. And so back to the insecurities, like I couldn't just I mean, the anxiety, it would take me to the point that I would have, sometimes we would be places and I would have panic attacks. And so when we got to Dr. Thompson, it was just something with her that just sort of calmed me. And I think it was me looking across the table to someone who looked like me, who understood my fear, my story, my journey. And the one thing she said, like I said, was she said she was going to continue to try. It wasn't about stats with her, because going back to that first clinic, the reason they didn't want to give me the progesterone is because that pregnancy was not going to be one of theirs. They weren't going to get the high rankings or the successful ratings, for having that successful pregnancy. They wanted to get me pregnant. Dr. Stephanie didn't care anything about that. And so I started treatment with her, and she was my 4th clinic. And we were hitting high medicines doing. And her retrieval, we got 1 egg.
And all it takes is one.
We got 1 egg. Yeah. She said she wanted to put it back in. She said she wanted to see what it was going to do. We put it back in, and it did not take. So I said, you know what? And I told Willie, I said, if Dr. Stephanie says that this is not possible, then I will entertain a donor. I said, but I want to take a break. Yeah. And she told me, she said, I want to try one more time. And I said, you know what? I need to take a break. My husband and I were opening a restaurant. We own a bar in the Bronx. It was just a lot going on. And I said, I wanted to take a break. And she told me to come back the next month. That happened May 27th. We found out that the pregnancy did not hold. Had my cycle on June 1st, which is considered day 1. They like to take blood on day 21, between day 21 and 22. And that would have been June 21st. On June 21st, I pop up pregnant again. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't excited. I just was like, Stephanie.
Right.
Because at this point, I've had 7 miscarriages. I'm like, what is this? She said, yeah. She said, I still want to test you. Come in. Let's see. We come in. Everything's looking good. She's like, your numbers are high. We go. She tells me to come back on that Monday. Numbers are increasing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be going to Essence Fest. I have this. She said, oh girl, I'm going to Essence Fest too. I said, whoo, I had never had a doctor, honey, that was telling me they were going to be at the Essence Fest. I was like, oh, okay. You know, I'm like, yes. She said, listen, anything happens, you call me. You call me if you feel anything, if you see anything, you do. I'm at Essence Fest doing our thing. Get through that, come back. We come back. My numbers were so high. She was like, girl, lay back. Let me see if it's twins in here.
Really?
But the night before that happened, it was that week was Father's Day. And I remember my husband and I had gotten a call and we weren't invited to an event. His sister called and she was asking why we weren't at his friend's party. And I said, I didn't know that Bo was having anything. And so his aunt whispers in the background and she didn't know that I heard her. She was like, no, it's a Father's Day event. It was for fathers.
Oh.
So Willie didn't pay any attention to it. And so I got up and I didn't say anything. I hung up the phone. I said, well, you know what? It's Father's Day. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to fix you a breakfast because I know that you're going to be a father one day and da-da-da-da. And I went into a room that I called my war room. And I had all of these old, sonograms, different things. I had all these prayers that I prayed that are in the book. I have all of these sayings, all this stuff on the wall. And it was on that day, Dr. Ebony, that I got on my knees and I let God have it. And I hate to say that, but I did. I said, listen, this is Willie's last Father's Day without being a father. If it is not with me, I am fine with it. But if this is not your will for me, if I am not aligned with what you have for me, then take the desire from my heart. Don't show me that baby. Let him find someone who can do it. Remove it from me because I want to be aligned with what your will is for my life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you would continue to put this baby in my heart, in my soul, in my spirit, if it wasn't for me. But clearly it's not. And it ends now. That was my prayer.
Wow.
And on that Friday, that was a pregnancy. And that pregnancy was William Muriel Colon IV.
Wow. Who just turned 6 years old. Am I correct?
Just turned 6 years old. I'm proud.
And you also have a daughter, correct?
And after that, listen, when God says he's going to give you double for your trouble.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Listen, first of all, if Holly would have gotten here before William, y'all never would have met me. She was double, triple, quadruple. Oh my God. But that's my baby. She's mine and I'm going to stick with her.
And when you look at them, what do you see? In this process?
I see a God that is undeniable, uncomparable. I mean, I see an awesome, awesome, awesome God. Like you're not understanding how they looked at me and said, the only way you will be able to have a baby is if you get a donor egg.
Wow.
And I was 42 when I had my son, and I was 43 when I had my daughter.
Wow. Both
are natural conception. We spent so much money on IVF and IUIs and treatments. I did holistic treatments. I was going to acupuncture. I was going to the Chinatown, getting all kind of herbs and needles and stuff stuck in me. Mox buckshot. I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but I was getting where they would have the smoke and stuff coming up. Everywhere we went when we were traveling, I would not miss a treatment. I found a fertility acupuncturist in Atlanta, when we were in San Francisco, when we were in Houston, when we were in New Orleans, whatever I was doing, I'm taking these. I was spending $500 on a gallon of nasty Chinese herbs. When I tell you that if I smell it, I will throw up now.
Right.
Because I was going through all of this, but it wasn't God's time. It wasn't his time. And, but it's because of that, I have this testimony that I'm able to just share with people and just say, listen, if God promises it to you, you have to believe he's going to give it to you. He will deliver.
You know, and there are so many women that, like I said, share your story of, I've tried, and not even women, couples just in general, you know, I've tried, I want to believe. And so your book, Faith and Fertility, where can they find it so they can have some words of inspiration?
Yes, it is on Amazon. It is on Ingram Spark. We're getting ready to get into bookstores. So I've been meeting with Black bookstores across the country. So I'm hoping to be coming somewhere near you. But right now you can get it on Amazon. Like I said, Ingram Spark, you can get it on Lulu Books. And hopefully it will be in bookstores near you very, very soon.
There you go. Speaking as sister is truth. That's good. But thank you, Aikisha, so much for sharing your personal journey. And be sure to hug those babies for me, especially little Holly. Let Holly rule. Let her be a leader.
Honey, you that's all you can do. But you know what? I'm raising her. Having Holly put a spark and a fire in me. Like no other. I can't even describe it. Like everything I do now in my business, in life, every investment, it's like, it's all in her. And it started when she was in the womb. It's something about that little girl. And somebody, sort of spoke that over me. They were like, this little girl is going to be a force to be reckoned with. She is going to change the world. And I feel that. And so everything that I've done now she's the motivation.
Oh my God.
It's motivation.
Well, like I said, they're going to be the inspiration for so many women. So we thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's becoming the hottest new trend among young adults and teens, but doctors are sounding the alarm. Stay with us as we break down the dangers of vaping.
Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
New statistics reveal that more than 100 million people vape globally. In 2024, nearly 1.63 million middle and high school students reported using e-cigarettes. Now, e-cigarettes are becoming trendy with their sleek, cool cases and fruity flavors, but doctors are sounding the alarm on the harm they can cause. Joining me now is Dr. Yolanda Coleman, the chief nurse, to break down the latest social trends. So welcome, Dr. Yolanda.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So what is vaping, and is it less harmful than cigarettes?
So vaping is when nicotine is heated in a cartridge that contains not only nicotine, but other chemicals and heavy metals that can be harmful. So some may think that nicotine vaping is less harmful, but it's actually can cause a lot of harm to the lungs. So one of the things that has been noted is that there are chemicals in nicotine, such as formaldehyde, that can be very harmful, cause lung cancer and other injuries to the lung.
Now, these devices don't necessarily always look like the traditional cigarette, right? So as a nurse on the front lines, what signs should parents and teachers look for and see if a teen is actually vaping? Like, even if they're trying to hide it, is there like a warning sign of saying, hey, ask the question, are they vaping?
So if the vapor contains nicotine, nicotine can be highly addictive, and then that can lead to withdrawals. And some signs and symptoms of withdrawals can include anxiety, irritability, mood disorders, sleeping, lack of concentration. Those are some things that parents may note from children or adolescents that are vaping.
Huh. And it's one of those, you listed out the mood disorders, the sleepiness, the tiredness. And I think back to when I was a teenager, and I'm like, I pretty much checked all those boxes. So what are some on the microscopic level, what's happening though? Because I wasn't vaping back then, right? So what's happening to kind of accentuate those symptoms of teenage life for people who actually vape?
Well, it's been said that vaping is safer. So teenagers feel that vaping is more safer than smoking an actual conventional cigarette, which is not always the case because vapors do contain toxic chemicals, and it's also cheaper than the conventional cigarette per use. And it eliminates the stigma of the smoke smell. So teenagers are more likely to use vapors because of those three things. It also has been shown in studies that teenagers that vape are more likely to turn to conventional smoking in the future. So that is a concern for health risk in the near future for teenagers.
And can you talk about the different smells? So I think if a parent walks by and they smell cigarette smoke, they of course know, hey, my child is smoking a cigarette, right? Or marijuana. It has a distinctive smell. What are the smells of these vaping pens that parents can look out for if their child is actually vaping?
So sometimes it doesn't have a smell, but there's flavors that are placed in the vapors. And this is why teenagers like the vapors a little bit more, because it doesn't produce that stigma of smelling like nicotine or tobacco. So you would have to really see the cartridge and understand that the teen is vaping, because there may not be a smell associated with the vapor.
And if a teen is watching right now, can you talk about what exactly are in these oils that's so toxic, and what organs are getting impacted by the vaping process itself?
So there are toxic chemicals and heavy metals such as lead. Some studies have shown that toxic chemicals such as formaldehyde have been noted to be in vapors, which can cause lung cancer and other lung-associated injuries. So this is why it's important to understand that if you're buying a vapor off of the black market or even online, you could be getting a mixture of chemicals that can be very toxic or poisonous to your system.
And social media, I think, plays a huge role in all of our lives, particularly for those teenagers who are trying to identify themselves in their peers, right? So how do we kind of counter the marketing and the peer pressure that comes across on social media with the vaping trend, right? How do we make it seem less of a fad that people should participate in and really deem it as a harmful thing that teenagers should avoid at all costs?
I think it's imperative for us to educate not only as the parents, but then healthcare providers and school administrators all need to be a part of ensuring that we put out the right topics to understand that vaping may be less harmful than an actual cigarette, but it's still harmful and toxic to the body. So we do need to have education in place so that they can understand that there are risks associated with vaping.
Right. And what can you do? You mentioned how addictive nicotine is. It's like it's one of the hardest drugs to actually quit. That's why if you don't start it, you don't have to quit it, right? But what can you do? What are some steps that if someone says, I actually want to try to get off of this drug, what can they do to help quit and break that habit?
So there are smoking cessation programs that they can be a part of. There's also nicotine patches, gums, behavioral therapy, counseling, and programs associated with smoking cessation to help them quit. They can talk to their local health department or their own physician. We're learning more about those programs to help them quit smoking. There's also online resources that gives you phone numbers and call centers to talk about smoking cessation.
Well, Dr. Coleman, thank you so much for helping these teens understand that what feels trendy today can have real life consequences tomorrow, and that they do have the power to choose something differently. So I thank you. And is there any way that we can reach you on social media handles? If there's a team that says that I can't talk to my parent about this, I don't have anybody at school, but I really want to get help because I do want to quit.
Yes, I am reachable on LinkedIn by Dr. Yolanda Coleman.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And still to come, our next guest tells us, don't be afraid to grow old. In fact, she's helping us embrace it. We'll explain coming up.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
A 2024 survey of about 2,000 American women revealed that nearly half of women are stressed out about aging. The study showed that Gen Z and millennials, that's me, are more stressed about getting older than Gen X and baby boomers. Now, why is that? Joining me now is Stella J. Ringer, the founder and CEO of Zeal Aging Redefined podcast. Welcome, Stella.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Thank you for being here, because why are we? What is it about us that's stressed out about aging? This natural thing that we have no say in whether or not we're going to age, right? Why are we stressed out about it?
Yeah, Dr. Hilton, again, thanks for having me. I think it goes back to society as well. For me, as it relates to society and aging, especially for women, a lot of my research that I did, it's almost like we're devalued when we age, as from a female perspective. But when men age, they're more distinguished and they're more powerful. So we are eradicating the myths and demystifying the myths about aging. And we want women 40 plus, and even women that are younger than 40, to celebrate it, because it's a natural part of life.
Right. And you say it's never too late, right, to embrace aging gracefully. Explain how our audience can embrace their goals no matter what their age may be.
Yeah, I think it's, again, we've got to value the knowledge, the experiences, the wisdom that we bring as women 40 plus, right? So I always say it's never too late, because, again, we can teach and of course, kind of coach women before us, those that are coming behind us, I should say. But for us, and for me personally, it's never too late. It's never too late to be adventurous. It's never too late to try new things. It's just, you've got to truly embrace and know the value that you bring.
Right. And how are your audience, how are they saying they're handling this aging process anyway, especially for women? How are they handling menopause, for instance? Are they telling you that they're struggling right now?
Yeah, on my podcast, I bring these experts in, and we talk about everything from, again, menopause to our skin changes to sex as well. But as we think about menopause, it's still taboo. Even though more women are talking about it a little more, it's still taboo. It's like we're ashamed. Mm-hmm. So what our doctors are telling us is to, number one, it's a natural part of life. We've got to learn and educate and inform ourselves. Make sure you're talking with your doctors. And then talk with your partners about it. I have the greatest husband in the world.
Oh.
But I had to sit back and I had to build and grow to this, though, because initially I was like, oh, my God, I'm going through this change, as my mom says. In the olden days, they just said you're going through the change of life. Uh-huh. So I was a little silent about it until I said, you know what, I got to sit down and talk to him about it, because he knew what I was going through. And he's like, how can I help? So we've also got to talk about it as well. Again,
that's a good husband, right? Now you just wrapped up in season 3 of Aging Redefined podcast. So what were your top 3 topics that you feel like people wanted to talk about? Yeah.
And I would say menopause is one. Again, one of the guests mentioned, or really one of the listeners shared that, as women, when we're young and we start our menstrual cycles, we talk to our moms or we talk to our sisters or our friends. But once our body kind of goes through that change later in life, nobody's talking about it. Mm-hmm. So menopause was key, really through all the seasons 1 through season 3. Starting never too late to start something new, as we just talked about before. And then sex. We had a sexologist for season 1 as well as season 3. And when I tell you we had a good time talking about, as you mature, what changes as it relates to sex with your partner. Your positions may change as you grow older. What used to, kind of make you, get you where you need to be when you were younger could be different now that you're older. So sex was one of the topics that were one of our key topics as well.
And it's one of those things when you talk about sex and sex relief, right? Yeah. When you're looking at social media, there can be a lot of comparison of, are we doing the same thing as couples are doing? You and your husband, you say you have a very healthy, happy marriage. The stress around comparing yourself can be tied to aging for people, right? And what are you seeing? How do you make the mindset of your audience shift to encourage women to don't compare yourself to the next person, but literally live gracefully in your own defined life?
And you just answered the question. I mean, we really encourage people to be your true, authentic self. And I know it sounds cliche, authenticity, I know is like kind of a key word, if you will. But at the end of the day, it is true. Like you said, social media can, my grandmother used to say, if you're not in your right mind, sometimes those things can kind of push you off guard, as it relates to kind of seeing couples or seeing individuals. Just be who you are. And that's what we encourage all women to do, whether they're, 40 plus or less than 40. We always want to leave a roadmap for those young women that are coming behind us to say, this is what aging gracefully or, aging with positivity is all about. It's something that you need to look forward to. Don't dread it. Because you add value, like I said, the wisdom, the experiences, just be who you are. Just be we all have a different thumbprint, right? I've always heard everybody has a different thumbprint. Whatever that is for you, then make it happen. Make it happen. Just be who you are.
And leave your mark. For women who feel invisible as they age, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's in the workplace, dating, or in healthcare, what practical steps can they take to reclaim visibility, their confidence, or their voice? Mm-hmm. If they're feeling like, I'm not like I used to be, what are some action points that you say, these are the things that you should do to retrain yourself to love again?
Yeah. And I'll say the positivity piece always, has always helped me. And I always say too, you really shouldn't be who you were 10 years ago, right? If you're not learning, building, growing, then again, you're doing a disservice to yourself, right? So in my mind, I always tell women from a positivity standpoint too, just step back sometimes and think about all that you bring to the table, especially from a career standpoint, because I do feel at times as we climb the corporate ladder, or even you from a medical standpoint, sometimes you may get to that level and there's somebody on your shoulders like, you're done, you've done what you need to do, but just step back and just think about, again, the value that you bring to the table. It's all about value add for me. And I've been in corporate America for many, many years. And not only corporate, but whether it's friends, relationship, marriage, step back and know the value that you bring. And then, once you start checking off your list of all the things that you bring, you're like, I got this.
And what would you say has been the biggest, shift? From teenage years to 20s to 30s, which age would you say this really did kind of stretch me in my definition of who I was?
I think for me personally, it's when I actually 40 plus, I would say for me personally. And what we found in our research is women that turn 40, once we turn 40, that's when, again, we start to hear that little voice on our shoulder to say, hey, maybe you're done now. You may not be as pretty. You may not be as sexy. Maybe you gained a little weight. So at that juncture in life, again, we have to just step back and know that aging is a natural part of life. Any decision that we make, we either go left or we either go right, regardless of the decision. So as we age, let's go to the left here and ensure that we're embracing it and celebrating the journey versus listening to society when it says, once you become a certain age, you're invisible. We shine every day. We shine every day. So I would say, again, stepping back, always knowing your worth. Always knowing your worth. So there are different stages in life, like I said, where you learn, you build, you grow. You should always be growing. You know, I'm 61 now. So I know I'll be a different person 10 years from now, just based on the things that I've learned and where I've grown, where I am now. So I think we should always be changing, but always embracing the new experiences that life brings.
I know the audience is going to say 61 where? Because yes, absolutely flawless. Your skincare alone should drive us to want to figure out what's the secret, you know. But I tell you, thank you, Stella, for joining us. Where can the audience find your podcast so they can tune in, so they can age as gracefully as you clearly are doing? You're doing something right.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And it's all about supporting each other too. You know, it's all about supporting each other. So for Zeal Aging Redefined, you can find the podcast wherever you find your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Even if you just Google Zeal Aging Redefined, all of the podcast channels will come up. You can definitely follow us on Instagram as well, and also on TikTok. And see, that's another demystifying thing that we're doing. Initially, I was like, I don't know if I need to be on TikTok. I think all the younger generation is there. That's where we're growing, is on TikTok. But for the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, you'll be able to find Zeal Aging Redefined.
Zeal Aging Redefined. Tune in for it, folks. Well, thank you, Stella, for joining us, and we will surely have you back at a later date.
Sounds good. Just give me a call. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And coming up next, my prescription of the week. Stay with us.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Fertility is health, not just baby making. When we talk about fertility, it's usually framed around getting pregnant or not, but fertility is bigger than that. It's a window into your overall health, your hormones, your stress levels, and how your body is functioning as a whole. Fertility isn't just about ovaries or sperm. It's about sleep, nutrition, movement, gut health, mental health, and chronic stress. When the body is overwhelmed, fertility is often one of the first systems to feel it. And we see that, right? Missed periods, irregular cycles, low libido, erectile changes. Our fatigue aren't just life being busy. They're signals. And timing matters. Fertility challenges are becoming more common and showing up earlier for both men and women. Stress, environmental exposures, delayed childbearing, and untreated health conditions all play a role. For men, sperm count and quality have declined worldwide around the past few decades. And for women, conditions like fibroids or PCOS and endometriosis are increasingly common and often underdiagnosed. But here's the empowering part. Fertility isn't fixed, it's responsive. Small changes matter. Getting quality sleep, managing stress, treating underlying conditions, and asking questions early. Seeing fertility as something to protect, not something to panic about later. And you don't have to be trying for a baby to care about fertility. You don't have to wait until there's a problem to check in. Fertility awareness is self-knowledge. It's prevention, it's power. And whether your future includes children or not, your reproductive health deserves attention now, not someday. Because fertility isn't just about creating life, it's about supporting your own life. And that, my friends, is my prescription of the week. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week on Second Opinion.